What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses walks into a late-night interview only to realize she's been set up? The energy in the Late Show studio was electric as Stephen Colbert wrapped his opening monologue to roaring. Applause. The crowd was buzzing, expecting charm, laughter, maybe even a few quirky Jennifer Lawrence moments. But they were about to witness something entirely different. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Academy Award-winning actress Jennifer Lawrence. She stepped out to a standing ovation, radiant in a sleek black dress, waving, smiling. She took her seat comfortably, expecting another fun, easy conversation. And for the first few minutes it was, "So, let's talk about your new film," Stephen began. "You play a woman navigating some really dark psychological terrain. What was that like?" Jennifer lit up, diving into her process. She spoke with passion about her preparation, the emotional demands of the role, the collaboration with her director and castmates. The audience was hooked. Then, the tone shifted. Stephen leaned forward, his smile thinning. "Speaking of demanding situations," he said, "there have been reports circulating about your behavior on set. Some pretty serious allegations about how you treat crew members." "Well," Stephen continued, "anonymous sources claim there's a pattern of you being difficult. Unreasonable demands, hostile environments." Jennifer's posture stiffened. "Stephen, I pride myself on being professional," she said. "I've worked hard for over a decade to build a reputation based on respect and collaboration. Anyone who's actually worked with me could tell you that." But Colbert didn't let up. These sources described tantrums, special treatment things, well beyond what most stars ask for. The room grew tense. The audience, once lively, now leaned in uncomfortably. Jennifer blinked, then met his gaze. "I'm not sure why you're bringing up anonymous gossip instead of talking about the work I came here to discuss," she said, her tone cool. "This feels more like a tabloid ambush than a real interview." "I'm just trying to get to the truth," Colbert replied with mock sincerity. "The public deserves to know who they're supporting." "The truth?" Jennifer's voice sharpened. "I've fought for fairness, not just for myself, but for others. If you think anonymous whispers outweigh over a decade of real, visible work, that says more about your priorities than mine." Stephen, sensing the tension, tried to pivot but not away. He pushed further. "Well, since we're talking about truth, let's talk about your comments on PE equality. Some say your activism is more about publicity than principle, that it's hypocritical for someone in your position." Jennifer's jaw tightened. She didn't blink. "My advocacy for equal pay isn't a stunt," she said. "It's about fairness for actresses just starting out. For crew members, for the women who never get to sit in this chair. I've taken cuts so others could get paid more. I've backed legislation. I've taken risks to say what needed to be said. But critics argue," Stephen interrupted, "that it's easy to preach fairness when you've already made millions." Jennifer paused. Then she spoke with quiet precision. "You're right, I've been fortunate, but using that platform to advocate for others isn't hypocrisy. It's responsibility. And if you think calling that out is somehow clever or brave, maybe you've forgotten what your job is actually supposed to be." Colbert leaned back slightly, the air in the studio charged. No applause, no jokes. Just the sharp echo of a woman, refusing to be diminished. Jennifer straightened in her seat. "If you wanted to have a real conversation, Stephen, you had the chance. Instead, you went for spectacle." She looked toward the crowd, now silent, captivated, and then back at the host. "I've sat across from hundreds of journalists in my career, and I can tell the difference between curiosity and ambush." She removed her mic and stood up. "I came here to talk about the work, but if this is what you think your audience deserves, you can finish the show without me." And just like that, she walked off the stage. No dramatics, no yelling, just quiet, deliberate resolve. Behind the desk, Colbert sat frozen, the weight of the moment sinking in. He hadn't just lost control of the interview, he'd lost the... And the silence said more than any punchline ever could. Stephen's tone was becoming increasingly aggressive. "I think it's a bit rich that you're sitting here attacking me for trying to help others," Jennifer snapped, her famously calm demeanor beginning to fracture. "I could easily keep quiet and enjoy the benefits of my career, but I choose to speak out because it's the right thing to do." Some in the crowd applauded, but Colbert wasn't done. Some would say you speak out because it keeps you in the headlines, he countered with a smirk that lacked warmth. The mood in the studio turned what had begun as light-hearted, turned cold and tense. Jennifer glanced at the audience, then back at Colbert, her expression tightening. "Are you seriously questioning my motives for advocating for equality?" she asked, her voice edged with steel. "I'm just asking the questions people are thinking, to play the innocent. Isn't that what good journalism is about?" "Good journalism?" Jennifer said sharply, her voice cutting through the air. "Stephen, this isn't journalism. This is tabloid baiting dressed up as an interview. Frankly, I'm disappointed." Colbert leaned back, clearly enjoying the spectacle. "I think the audience deserves to hear all sides of the story. We can't ignore the elephant in the room." Jennifer blinked. "What elephant?" she demanded, her patience nearly gone. "You've been accused by multiple sources of unprofessional behavior, tantrums, hostility on set," Stephen said smugly. "And those sources are anonymous." Jennifer snapped. "Do you hear yourself? You're trying to destroy a career with vague gossip and hearsay. Where's your proof? Where are your facts? The fact is, multiple people have spoken. I'm saying if you don't have names, if you don't have anything verifiable, then what you're doing is character assassination," she fired back, voice rising. "This is exactly the kind of reckless media behavior that ruins lives." The room fell into dead silence. Even the studio crew had stopped moving. Still, Stephen pressed on. "Okay, let's talk about something more concrete or relationship. With director David O. Russell, reports say there were explosive arguments on set. Want to comment?" Jennifer's eyes flashed. "My working relationships are professional. Creative differences happen all the time. That doesn't make it a scandal." "But witnesses described shouting matches and walkouts," Colbert insisted, flipping dramatically through his notes. "Hiding behind gossip while attacking me face to face, that's cowardly. Not ambush your guests with hit pieces disguised as interviews." The tension reached a boiling point. Colbert's mask slipped, his irritation showing. "Maybe if you were more honest about who you really are, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Jennifer's mouth dropped open. "Who I really am? You don't know me. You've skimmed blogs instead of researching my work, my activism. And it paints a picture of someone who plays a role in public but behaves very differently off camera." That was it. Jennifer stood up abruptly, startling both the host and the crowd. "That's enough. I came here to talk about my film, to have a professional conversation, not to be smeared by gossip." "Sit down, Jennifer. We're not finished," Colbert said, trying to take control. "Oh, we're absolutely finished," she replied, her tone icy. "I won't stand here while you try to drag my name through the mud for ratings. This is live television. You can't just walk away." "When the questions get tough," Colbert warned. "Watch me." But she didn't leave just yet. Jennifer faced the audience, then turned back to Colbert. "You want to talk about truth?" she said, voice trembling with rage. "The truth is, I've treated people with respect. The truth is, I've used my platform to help others." "Prove it," she shot back. "Name your sources. Show your evidence. Otherwise, stop pretending this is journalism," Colbert stammered. "I don't have to reveal sources. I'm protecting them." "How convenient," Jennifer sneered. "They get to lie in the shadows while you sit here smearing me without accountability." The audience watched in stunned silence, many squirming in their seats, unsure if they were witnessing journalism or a public takedown gone too far. It felt like the audience was witnessing something they shouldn't, be something too raw, too real for late-night TV. Stephen made one final desperate attempt to wrest control of the situation. "Jennifer, I think you're overreacting," he said, forcing a calm he didn't feel. "These are just normal interview questions." Jennifer let out a short, sharp laugh. There was no humor in it. "Normal?" she echoed, incredulous. "Stephen, there's nothing normal about what you've done here tonight. You've violated every standard of responsible journalism and basic human decency." "I'm just holding you accountable," Stephen said, but even he didn't sound convinced anymore. "Accountable for what?" she demanded. "For what?" "Exactly, for being successful. For using my platform to speak up about real issues. For rumors you won't even back up with facts." Her voice was rising now, swelling with justified outrage. "You want someone to hold accountable? Try looking in the mirror." Stephen opened his mouth to cut in, but she barreled on, unrelenting. "You've used your platform tonight to spread gossip. Anonymous, unverified garbage. You ambushed me with it. You've turned what should have been a conversation about my work into a cheap attempt at character assassination." A heavy silence fell over the studio. Stephen looked around, silently, pleading for support from the audience. But they met him with uncomfortable glances, folded arms, and disapproving stares. Jennifer took a breath. "You know what, Stephen?" she said, her voice suddenly icy calm. "I've been in this business long enough to recognize a setup when I see one. This was never meant to be a real interview, was it?" Stephen shifted in his seat, clearly rattled. His mask was cracking. "I don't know what you mean," he said quickly. "This is just how interviews work." "No," she shot back. "This is how ambushes work. Real interviews are built on preparation, research, respect, not gotcha questions, designed to stroke your own ego." The audience stirred, many now nodding in agreement. The energy in the room had shifted entirely. Stephen could feel it slipping away. "Jennifer, please," he said weakly. "Let's finish this. Professionally. Professionally." Her eyebrows rose. "Stephen, you forfeited professionalism the moment you led with anonymous gossip instead of my actual work." Stephen cast a desperate glance at his producers. They had no answers-only stunned expressions. "Maybe we got off on the wrong foot," he said, grasping at straws. "Let's just start over and talk about your film." Jennifer laughed a bitter, hollow sound. "You can't unring this. Belle, you spent 20 minutes trying to tear me down, and now you want to hit rewind? That's not how this works." "I wasn't attacking you," Stephen said, almost pleading. "I was asking legitimate questions." "Legitimate," she snapped. "Based on what?" "Anonymous blogs, third-hand rumors. You keep hiding behind these so-called sources like they're some kind of journalistic shield. But real journalists don't work this way." Stephen fumbled with his note cards, scrambling for ground he no longer had. "The public has a right to know about the people they admire. They have a right to truth." "Stephen," Jennifer shot back, "to facts, not your tabloid speculation dressed up as integrity." The studio was now silent, completely captivated. Some audience members were even beginning to clap. Stephen noticed and panicked. "I think you're being overly sensitive about some pretty standard interview questions," he said. That was the breaking point. Jennifer's eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer to his desk, her voice dropping to a dangerously calm tone. "Overly sensitive? You just spent the better part of half an hour smearing my reputation on national television, and you think I'm being overly sensitive?" "I was just doing my job," Stephen said, but even he sounded like he didn't believe it. "No, Stephen," she replied, "your job is to have meaningful conversations, to entertain people, not to ambush your guests, not to turn your show into a gossip rag with a fancy set." Stephen looked around the room, frantic. The audience was fully with Jennifer. Now, his crew looked uncomfortable, and his guest was systematically destroying him in real time. "Jennifer, I think you need to calm down," he said. Her response came like a lightning strike. "Calm down," she repeated, her voice cold enough to freeze the air. "You ambush me with lies, question my integrity, my work, my entire character, and then you tell me to calm down." She turned to the audience, her voice steady but cutting, and the gesture alone made Stephen visibly squirm. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jennifer said, "this right here is why people don't trust the media anymore. When entertainment disguises itself as journalism and throws out every ethical standard in the process, ... This is what you get." The crowd erupted in applause. Loud, supportive, unmistakable. Stephen's face drained of color. His own audience was now cheering against him. "Jennifer, please!" he tried again, voice tight with panic. "Please!" "What?" she snapped, whirling back toward him. "Please sit here while you assassinate my character. Please pretend that your ambush tonight is somehow normal or acceptable. Please help you gin up controversy at my expense." Stephen flushed deep red, whether from embarrassment or frustration, it was hard to say. "I just think you're blowing this way out of proportion," he said, trying to keep control. "These were just a few simple questions." Jennifer laughed, bitter, sharp, simple questions. "Stephen, you accused me of being difficult to work with based on unnamed sources. You mocked my advocacy work, called it performative. You implied I'm hypocritical, even dishonest. There was nothing simple about it, and none of it was based on truth." She turned directly to the camera now, and the saddest part, she said, voice thick with controlled emotion. "I came here excited to talk about a project I care about, to discuss acting, craft, purpose. I expected a conversation. Instead, I got ambushed by someone who thinks tabloid gossip passes." For journalism, Stephen reached for a lifeline. "Well, this has certainly been an interesting conversation," he muttered. "Interesting," Jennifer echoed, incredulous. "Stephen, this wasn't a conversation. This was an attack. And don't you dare pretend otherwise." She began walking off stage. The camera followed as Stephen called out, panicking. "Jennifer, wait. You can't just walk out. We're still filming." She stopped at the edge of the stage, turned back one last time, her expression a devastating mix of disappointment and disdain. "You ended this show, Stephen," she said quietly. "The moment you chose sensationalism over integrity. I'm just making it official. That's completely unprofessional," Stephen snapped, his voice cracking. Jennifer froze. Slowly, she turned back and walked straight toward him. "Unprofessional," she said, deadly calm. "Let's talk about unprofessional." She stood at his desk now, commanding the entire room. "Unprofessional is ambushing your guest with rumors you won't even source. Unprofessional is using your platform to spread lies for ratings. Unprofessional is attacking someone's character without evidence and then acting like they're the problem." Stephen opened his mouth, but she kept going. "Unprofessional is violating the trust between a host and a guest. It's turning a conversation into a spectacle, and it's having the audacity to call your guest unprofessional when they won't play along." The room was dead silent. "Someone here's been unprofessional tonight," she finished. "But it wasn't me." And with that, Jennifer Lawrence turned and walked off stage, leaving Stephen Colbert sitting alone at his desk, facing an audience now applauding her dramatic exit. The applause grew louder, echoing through the studio. Stephen didn't move. He stared into the camera, his confidence shattered, his trademark smirk nowhere to be found. The wit, the charm, gone. All that remained was the stunned realization that his ambush had just exploded in his face, live on national television. And the cameras kept rolling, capturing frame by frame the exact moment a late-night host lost control of his own show. One of the most awkward, revealing moments in talk show history. What do you think? Was Jennifer right to call him out so directly, or could she have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about when Hollywood interviews go completely off the rails.